Greetings everyone. In this video, I am going to share my idea of what reality is and also my belief in terms of my spiritual growth, in terms of my ability to manifest the reality that I deserve, and also to get into some concepts like non-duality, which is the idea that you are one with everyone. In the Rastafarian philosophy, we hear the expression I and it means we are all connected. So when you say I and I, it's like me and you, we are one. There's no separation between us. So the concept of non duality is that we are one with everyone. Okay? And as long as you're able to transcend or elevate outside of the physical space we call reality, despite all these racial categories, please understand one blood, okay? Water, flesh, and breath. We all have this in common. Now, when you look at different cultures and different languages, you get to see that what is most important, which is human emotion, it does not need language because we understand it. So for example, if you see someone crying and the person is Russian, or someone crying and they're Japanese, you know what those tears are. If you're in Africa, if you see someone angry, you don't need to know what they're saying for you to know that they're angry. So the way we express our emotions, it's understood, and in the seat of our mind, heaven rest. And I'll come back to that afterwards. Okay. Now, for me, the reason why I moved away from religion, I was praying, I was fasting, I was living a certain life, and some of the experience I was having didn't make sense. I was struggling, I was hurting, I was suffering, I was finding myself trapped in this cycle, trying to understand myself as a human being and as an individual, and not understanding, these cause and consequences. For example, Adam did this particular thing, Adam and Eve, and then I had to bear the burden. I had to be whipped for what they did. Just didn't make sense. It made me more angry. And over time, I started understanding that spirituality, without the ability to control our reality, it is going to lead to nothing but insanity. Okay? Our minds tend to betray our action. So, what I'm saying in that is that we always hear, thank goodness nobody can read my mind. But the truth of the matter, because the mind is where the soul sits, it's difficult to explain it in that way, but I'm just saying that loosely. The mind being so powerful, whatever you hold in your mind, people who are enlightened can tell what you're thinking. So the mind is not that sacred or controlled as we want to believe, because whatever someone holds in their mind, trust and believe, even when they don't say it with their mouth, they do it with their actions. So whatever is going on in people's mind, you can tell who they are. So a person who is pretending to be very nice and very soft and gentle and demure, their action will betray them. Their action shows you what is in their mind. And so that's what I mean when I say our minds tend to betray us with our action. Just look what people do, and you will see what they hold secret and sacred. What they believe, they will also demonstrate that in their behavior towards themselves or to other people. So for people who say, God this and God that, God caused this and that to happen, no, it's people's action that betray them. So when you choose, because we are free beings, we're on this plane, and we have autonomy over our life. We just don't want to take control of it. We want to wait for an unseen being called God to take all these actions on our behalf. So, for example, people thief me. I took years of hard labor and work and borrowed loans and built a home, and they thief it. But guess what? I allowed it because I was waiting for God to do vengeance on my behalf. And listen, is that the kind of God you want to serve? That's going to go out there and just punish people and do these terrible things to people and to control situations that you can control for yourself. Okay? So our actions betray us because I'm there waiting for a God to do what I have the ability to do. Our actions betray us when we speak and when we allow certain things to happen. So someone doing something terrible to you and you're there waiting for God to deal with them, failing to realize that, wait, I allowed that door to open and for that person to walk in to my situation. I allowed myself to trust people with my hard-earned money without monitoring that situation, with trusting blind, having blind faith. So there's so many illusions on this third dimensional realm we call Earth. And until we get to the point where we are enlightened, what we choose to do is really entirely up to us. Okay? Our choices reflect the sort of struggles we have in our life. And we're going to get into that another time. However, I want to say that we say there's one planet. Okay? But there are different countries and different cultures. And as I said earlier, tears is understood, anger is understood, pain is understood, joy needs no explanation. So therefore, you have to start analyzing and saying to yourself, well, these cultural differences, these racial differences, they don't matter. The thing that matter are these emotions. This is what we use to break ourselves or to make ourselves, to transcend that physical plane. Because listen, in Christianity, we still hear Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. And in other religious idea, we hear body, mind, and spirit. But in Christian or some religious places, people tend to focus on just the physical and they ignore the spiritual. So until we merge body, mind, and spirit and connect with all three and declare it within our subconsciousness, or unify all three planes, which is the physical, the mental, the spiritual, that's the only time you'll be able to manifest your desired reality. None of these three things can produce any positive result. You have to come together to merge all these things. And so humans are limited in their capability to help you. First of all, we all come from this scarcity mindset. Some people might be good at manifesting money, but they're not good at manifesting relationship, or they're not good at manifesting, their spiritual walk, because you're focusing on this limited thing. You pick one and you cannot really elevate until you merge all three. I'm repeating myself with that, but you need to understand it. So we have to draw from this infinite source, and we often do that in the physical. We always draw from a finite source. Submitting to mankind leads to a finite source. So whenever we look to man as the author, and beginner of our faith, the church, the pastor, whatever, we will not be able to manifest power. For abundance, you must look to infinite source, to attach yourself to an infinite source rather than human source. And how can you do this? Detach yourself from the idea that we need others to pay us, to take care of us. When we go to work, we tend to see our boss, our employers as the ones who are paying us, when in reality, We are working to pay ourselves. It is through our labor why we're building these ones, but we tend to see them as, oh my gosh, what would I do without this one or that one? Because without them providing the job for us, we wouldn't be able to attain this. No, everyone should be in the same position as those ones who create work for others. Abundance does not rely on hard work, okay? And scarcity has nothing to do with the lack of resources. But those who control these resources by telling you if you don't work, you know, you're not going to attain anything in life. If you don't work for somebody, that is, you know, the boss wouldn't be rich without your labor. Boss somewhere on the island right now, sand coming out of their belly button, and you're working 10 hours. And when I say you, I'm speaking of myself as well. 10 hours for minimum wage. And until I move out of that place to say, okay, what is it that traps me into this state of being? And understand that I have the power to release that. The same thing the boss did. He has something, he's done something right. Because he recognized his ability not to just drive his own path, but to be able to control others in his reality. So all you get is the interest. These individuals, they have their capital, and we tend to think, okay, they're doing us well, but through our work, through our labor, through our equity, sweat equity, or whatever you want to call it, we're building wealth. So in essence, all of us are wealthy. Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and these guys, they're only rich because of the labor. Whether it become from the mind, yes, they have to conceive certain ideas, but sometimes the ideas they have are stolen from others. And yet they're the ones who are wealthy, right? And when we get to dividends, the little bit that falls off their table, we say we're so indebted to these ones. Throughout history, governments have relied on a few persons in society who has reached a certain level of enlightenment to determine the rules for everybody. And so while they were able to merge body, mind, and spirit, the average person just lived in a physical world, and used people as instruments to pay themselves. And through our hard work, money flows to them, and then they use that money as a tool for their own internal stability. Until we are stable internally, we will never be stable externally. So whatever you are doing, if you're not creating that wealth in your mind, that stability in your mind, it's not going to really manifest in the physical. Instead of trying to do more, we have to become more. And again, for years I've been saying everything that we create starts in the mind. We write it down and we walk towards it. That is still that 1, 2, 3 punch that you need in order to elevate or change your circumstances. Having the wrong idea about yourself or your worth or your labor is something that is going to lead to this false sense of security, or continue to stay in that place where you're always looking for a God outside of yourself to create the reality that you want. So our false mind often project the lowest frequency. And so we have to establish these boundaries to ensure that we get what we deserve. In the physical world, we think about effect. And in the mind, anything that's occurring in the mind, in the subconscious mind, as I said in the previous video, whatever the subconscious mind accepts as truth, it becomes truth in your reality. So you have to be more. You have to see yourself as deserving of more in order for you to radiate on that highest frequency. Emotional insecurity, worry, stress, fear, being scared about this or that, gives off a powerful frequency which leads to negativity. Okay, If you're powerful in your mind, internally, the energy that you're going to emit is going to allow you to attract positive things. But when the worry is there and the fear is there, you're going to attract just that negativity. Okay, so when we talk about working, we think about income, which is money coming in, income, which often cause a lot of us to feel a sense of, instability. Okay, but when we elevate our mind to think that everything is available, there's no scarcity, then all of a sudden you transcend that physical place, and now you're in that room where you're the boss, and you're saying, how will I pay myself? If you're fearful, you're going to just say, well, if I get $5, it is good enough. If I get food, clothes, and shelter, that's good enough. Because many of us have prayed for that. Father, give me food, clothes, and shelter. And when you get that, you're dissatisfied. But when you open your mind to the unlimited possibility of all that you can achieve, you start feeling that. So, recently I was out looking at cars and whatever, and I entered into a car that was really outside my reach. But there was something in there when I sat in the vehicle. It was like something saying, yeah, you deserve this. You can have this. But we have to detach ourselves from the outer economy, which is recession, job scarcity, and connect with the inner economy, where there's no confinement, there's no unlimited possibility. Abundance is here. It is defined by our internal state of mind, more so than what's happening on the outside. So in the past, I remember going with realtors to go look at homes that I had not even a dime I couldn't afford. Physically, I had no situation where I could afford that. But I was determined to manifest these things by saying, what's the harm in going and looking at them? And when you go, you start dreaming, and then you start changing things in your life. You start saving more. You start doing more things to attract these things or to be able to afford these things. So you have to be wealthy before the world shows it to you. You have to feel and walk as if you're wealthy or you have abundance before it's even in your physical, before it's in the bank account. Bank account could be empty and have $1. And you decide that, well, I deserve this. I can have this. You will have it. So your reality will change. If you are uncomfortable with change, you are not going to be comfortable with abundance. If I had more than I needed, what would be my state of mind? And you merge those emotions and you act accordingly. Internal relaxation shows there's nothing to worry about. The universe attracts what your subconscious mind believes. So the unity and synchronization is needed to have this desired reality. Okay, as I said before, some people think of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but 90% of us operate from that level of existence where, we're just focusing on one. Mental, physical, and spiritual is important. Body, mind, and spirit. You have to look into the three tri-you in order to understand that. You cannot have one without the other. So when you're saying, oh, I'm doing this in the physical, and you're not taking care of the mind, nothing is going to change. We exist on all three levels. Okay? So if we stay on the physical plane, it's illusion. What you're seeing or feeling is not real. When you transcend that and you get rid of the ego, you're then able to walk into the action or the level of consciousness that is going to help you create the reality that you need or seek. And I use the word need, but anything you need is unavailable. But old habits die hard. So we can't stay on the physical plane, because in the realm of the physical plane, it's all illusion. So if you seek to operate from the highest level of consciousness, the frequency expressed as awareness is being above the illusions. To attain this kind of enlightenment, you have to then elevate your mind. And in order to do that, you have to take right action. It is important that you do this. So for example, you want to lose weight and you're going to the gym. But after you're done with a rigorous exercise, you eat all kinds of garbage. So your mental fitness must align with your physical and spiritual strength. So you go to the gym and you're really working out for so long, as I said earlier, but you're not taking the action that is going to allow, the mental fitness and the physical fitness to align with the spiritual strength. Okay? When we examine the world and we think about consciousness, or look at the substance of reality, we will find the essence of God. Mind over matter. Mind is matter. Mind is consciousness. On the third dimensional reality, there is the illusion of polarity. Okay? Male and female. Ice and water. These are just different vibrations. They're different vibration. And so when you're operating on one or the other, you'll see or get different results. Matter is similar to ice. The mind is the same, just different rates of vibration. That's all. When we see the world in the physical, we're looking at tangible, but that's the law of vibration requires us to freeze what we see in front of us, to not take it so literal, because within this there is going to be deception. Okay, we can't materialize anything externally until you awaken the subconscious. And so every person is a representation of God. And when we physically manifest God, we must see God in ourselves and in other people. Okay? I am going to have to end this and do another part, because this is a lot to think about. But when we think about our self-worth, we often tie it to sin, the original sin, and guilt. And so this is causing us to not really become as powerful as we ought to be, because we believe that we're wicked and evil and shaping sin before we're even born. And with this Christ consciousness, we're not unifying that infinite intelligence that we are all born with. So, you have all these different philosophers that we see are great, and we think they had the power to lead us to God, when in reality we all have that power. In the Bible, it says, I and my Father are one. If you see the Father, you see me. It's the same thing with me and you. Okay? So suffering and scarcity and failure is just an example of us being out of alignment with the God in us. Okay, the golden rule is to treat others as you want to be treated. But at the same time, recognize that some people are going to do what they have to do to elevate themselves. So their first thought is not going to save you, it's to save themselves. Anyway, I'm going to stop for now, and I'll be back with another part.